And we're back. And now we get to learn some exciting naming about acids. So, the first acids we're going to learn to name are the binary acids. And we're going to go learn to do formula to name first. So, suppose we have this, H2S. All acids start with the letter H. Okay? It starts with the letter H, it's an acid. So, all acids start with hydrogen.
That's H.
Hydrogen, not helium. Starts with H, not He. So, does the formula start with an H? Yes, it does. How many capital letters do we have? Two. Use the prefix hydro. So when I name this, the hydro is referring to the hydrogen. Doesn't matter how many there are, Curtis. Hydro is saying there's hydrogen. Name the non-metal root. So what's the name of S, Rachel?
Sulfur.
Sulfur. Change the ending to ic, so it becomes sulfuric. And again, the conjugation, don't worry about, you'll catch on. It's not sulfic, it's sulfuric. And then we add the word acid. And when you take your tests and quizzes, there are examples of each of these on your sheet. So, refer to those if you get stuck on a test or a quiz. How about if we named this?
Hydrochloric acid.
So does it start with the letter H?
Yeah.
Yeah. Count the capital letters.
2.
2. Binary acid. The prefix hydro tells me it is a binary acid. And that will become important in just a second, Elizabeth. So if you see hydro, you know it's a binary acid. So, as Ali said, this would be called hydrochloric acid. Any questions so far? It's your chance to be famous on YouTube.
Hi,
Don't
YouTube.
use your last name. All right. How about going from name to formula?
If there is no H in front of it.
What, Marley?
If there is no H in front of it.
Then it's not an acid. Then it gets named according to some of the other rules we've already done. So what if we have this? Hydrophosphoric acid. So, hydrophosphoric acid, the prefix hydro tells me it's a binary. Okay, that it's a little bit of memorization there, Jonah. Hydro is going to tell you it's binary. So if it's binary, there are only 2 elements present. Hydrogen, because it's an acid, so it should start with H, And then what's the other one here? Phosphorus. Write your charges. Hydrogen's +1 because it's in the +1 column. Phosphorus is -3 because it's in the -3 column. Or you can look it up on your Appendix A. And then we do what we've already done, Kelly, crisscross. So the 3 goes down there, the 1 goes down there. We erase our charges. We erase the number 1 and H3P. Okay? So you have to balance the charges with these. Just like if we had, let's say we have hydroiodic acid. Write the H, write the I, write the charges, crisscross. It's already balanced. So we get to erase our charges.
Hi.
And there we go. Yes, it is high. All right, so questions on the binaries. Before we bring it on home with the ternary acids. Ternary acids, and we're going to do formula to name first. So suppose we have, let's stick with our sulfur motif. Oh no, did we do phosphorus? Phosphorus. Let's do this. H3PO4. So, does it start with the letter H? Yes, it does. Yep.
Okay, isn't water technically an acid then, because it starts with H?
Well, the funny thing about water is both an acid and a base. And we'll get to that much later in the year. Water is an acid and a base, and there's a special name for things like that. They're called amphoteric. And what happens is it's acidic and basic in equal parts. And since it's acidic and basic in equal parts, the acidity and the basicity cancel each other out, and it's neutral. But that's just water. I can't think of, there might be one or other two substances like that. And that's why, again, that's another reason why water is so special and so important to life, is that it can behave as an acid when it needs to, it can behave as a base when it needs to. Any other questions?
Would it be possible to synthesize a substance that can do that?
Yeah.
So if we run out of water, would that be our go-to thing?
No. Well, not for us. But thankfully water is very plentiful in the universe and on our planet. Not on many other planets, but it's plentiful on our planet. Okay, so does it start with H? Yes. How many capital letters? More than 2. Don't use the prefix hydro. So for ternaries, we never use the prefix hydro. In fact, it says, don't worry about naming the hydrogen. Just find the polyatomic group. So we don't name the H at all. All we have to do is name the polyatomic group. So what's the name of PO4?
Phosphate.
Phosphate. And now we get to go Latin. If it ends in ate, change the ending to ic. If it ends in ite, change the ending to us. So it ends in ate, so we change it to ic, phosphoric, add the word acid. That's phosphoric acid, which I believe is in every soda to help give a little crisp bite to the flavor. So every time you drink soda, you're putting a little bit of acid in your teeth. So that's phosphoric acid. How about this one? H3PO3. Does it start with an H? Yeah. How many capital letters? 3. Don't worry about naming the H. Just name the PO3. What's PO3? Phosphite. If it ends in ite, change it to us. So it becomes phosphorus. Not phosphorus, phosphorus acid. And then it just continues on down the road. If we had PO2, that's hypophosphite. Again, if you don't remember how to name the anion part, Tegan, you can go to your appendix. So PO2, hypophosphite, it becomes hypophosphorus acid.
How much is the hypo if there's 3
Phosphor.
Because PO2 is hypophosphorate.
Yep. PO2 is hypophosphite. If it ends in ite, you change it to us. And I'm just gonna.
I have a question.
Yep.
Is you said add us? Is it OUS or just US?
OUS. OUS. For the acid. It says that on Appendix B as well. It's OUS. And I'm throwing up the binary one we did before just to, again, show you the comparison. When you have the binary, what do? You use the prefix hydro. So that's how I know the difference between something like this guy and the top guy. There's phosphoric acid on the top here, but it doesn't have the prefix hydro. When I see the prefix hydro, I know it's just 2 elements and that there is no oxygen. So it's starting to get a little bit trickier with more and more memorization. All right, any other questions before we go the other way, to go from name to formula? So, going from, whatchamacallit, we're doing acids and we're going from name to formula. And to our friends in Bangalore watching, I just want to say namaste. All right, so, name to formula. Suppose we have we're going to do 2 of them at once. Hydrosulfuric acid, leave a little space, and sulfuric acid. So, what's the difference between these two? One is hydro, one does not. When you see that prefix hydro, again, this is memorization. That's why we can retake these quizzes. When you see the prefix hydro, you know it's only 2 elements. If you don't see the prefix hydro, you know that it's more than 2 elements. For the top one, we just write our charges in balance, H2S. Now for the ternaries, you basically reverse the steps. You go backwards up. So you're going to change ick back to 8 and us, OUS, back to ite. So it ends in ick. We change it to 8. And what is the formula for sulfate?
SO4.
SO4. What is the charge on it?
2 plus.
2 minus.
Is sulfur part of acids?
Yep, sulfur is part of acids. All acids start with the letter H, and all H's have a +1 charge. And so therefore, Jorna, what we do is we crisscross. So the 1 goes over here, and the 2 goes there. Then we erase our charges. We erase the number 1, and we have H2SO4. If you want to leave the parentheses, that's up to you. If there's a number 1 on the outside, you don't have to have them. You can write it as H2SO4. Let's do another example. How about we do... Oh, why not? No. Okay. I don't think this exists, but I'm just going to make it up. Carbonous acid.
Why doesn't that exist?
I'm not sure. It might exist. I don't still think I've ever heard of it. But it's a good example to use to show the rules. So, does it start with hydro? No. Therefore, it's polyatomic or a ternary acid. If it ends in OUS, change it to ite. So we go backwards. What is carbonite? CO2 with a 2 minus charge. Don't confuse that with carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is just regular old CO2 with no charge. Carbonite has got a 2 minus charge. Write the hydrogen. Now crisscross. H2CO2 is carbonous acid. Erase our charges. And to our friends in Poland, cześć and jak się masz. All right, we're almost done. There's only one more thing to cover. I'm not sure what to title this. It's not acids, it's not bases, it's just a little bit of naming. I guess it would be polyatomic. So, remember yesterday I said if you just have this, you name it and add the word ion. So what is the name of CO3? Carbonate. Add the word ion. It has a 2- charge. Why? Because right now that's just the way it is. Once we learn how to do electron configurations and Lewis dot structures, then we'll be able to explain how to do it. So the charge is 2-. Hydrogen has got a 1+ charge, right? What if I place one hydrogen out front with this? If carbonate has a 2- charge, and I add a hydrogen that has a 1+ charge, it reduces the overall charge by 1. It still has a charge, so it still has an ion. The name of this actually has 2 different names, Brooke. One of them is historical. The other one is the correct official way of naming it. But I can tell you that most people use the common name because we've used it for 250 years. So everybody uses the common name, not the official name. So John Dalton, my MFC, was studying hydrogen, and he gave it the symbol Bi. You know what MFC is, right? My favorite chemist. Don't you guys text? You don't text about your MFC. What is wrong with you people?
Never came up with
Mr.
that
Source, you're my
conversation.
MFC.
You need to figure out who your MFC is. ASAP. See? It's texting. Okay, maybe I should teach you guys how to text. Alright, anyhow. So, Dalton was a high school chemistry teacher turned scientist. That's why he's my MFC. He nicknamed hydrogen Bi. Why? Because he suspected it was diatomic. The Bi for John Dalton meant hydrogen. Okay? It had nothing to do with well, sort of. But he nicknamed hydrogen Bi. So when he named this, he didn't call it hydrogen carbonate. He called it bicarbonate. So this is a bicarbonate ion. The bi refers to the hydrogen. And so if I had this, I'm putting the parentheses around it just to help you find, to see the anion. NaHCO3, this is called sodium bicarbonate.
Is bicarbonate sort of like the weird exception, or are there others like this?
No, it's just sodium bicarbonate, and I would always get this backwards, is baking powder. Sodium bicarbonate is baking powder. It's called sodium bicarbonate. The official way of naming it is this. Sodium, how many hydrogens are there? Monohydrogen carbonate. That's a mouthful. Sodium monohydrogen carbonate. It's a lot easier to just use the prefix bi. And this doesn't just have to be with the carbonate. We can do this with any one of the ones that are in passes. So let's say we have PO4, 3 minus. And we're going to do HPO4, H2PO4. and leave a space below it on how to name it. To our friends in Germany, I say Guten Tag. Welcome. So, what's the name of PO4? Phosphate. It's got a charge, so it's ion. If I add a hydrogen, what happens to my charge? It goes down by 1, so it becomes,
Why does it go down by 1?
because remember, a hydrogen is a +1, so by adding a hydrogen, I ended up reducing the charge. So this becomes biphosphate ion. The official way of writing this, Aaron, is just like we did with the carbonate. The official way of naming this is monohydrogen
Hydrogen is the first element.
phosphate ion. Okay, that's a long word to write. Monohydrogen phosphate ion.
Why do you use mono? I thought you were not supposed to use it for.
That's for nonmetal to nonmetal. This is a polyatomic thing. So, what if we add another hydrogen? What's going to happen to our charge? We'll go down by 1 again. And so, how do we name this? There's only one way to name it. And that is the official way of naming it, the IUPAC. How many hydrogens do we have? 2. What's the Latin prefix for 2? Di. So it's going to be dihydrogen phosphate ion. Now this is where I get people on the quiz, Jared. I'll put this one here. And then right next to it, I'll put this one. So that I'll make this one number 9 and that one number 10. Is there a charge? No, it's not an ion. It starts with the letter H. It's neutral. This is an acid. So it gets named according to the rules of the acid, phosphoric acid. As far as these guys go, I wrote them separately as ions, but you really don't find them as ions. What really happens is you find them as neutral compounds like this. NaH2PO4. So what would the name of NaH2PO4 be? There's my anion, there's my cation. This would be sodium dihydrogen phosphate. We don't write the word ion because it doesn't have a charge. Yep, Janine.
So is dihydrogen phosphate ion, is dihydrogen phosphate all one word?
It's all one word.
And then same with dihydrogen phosphate, or?
Dihydrogen phosphate is all one word. Dihydrogen phosphate is all one word. Any other questions? Comprende? Comprend? Versteh? Samja? I think we're good. Yep.
If it has an ion, it will show you that outside the parentheses.
There will be a charge written outside the parentheses. Okay? All right. So, this is Mr. Strauss signing off. Just a reminder, you may not use any of my video without my express written consent. You may not profit off of me without my express written consent.